In this video, we'll have Jordan Peterson and his friend and ally Jonathan Pageau discussing in separate conversations dragons, what they are symbolically and psychologically, and we'll follow up with an explanation of the Jungian understanding of dragons and the role they play on the path to individuation or self-actualization.
The dragon, I already defined the dragon at some point, partly from a book I read a while back on dragons, as a tree, cat, snake, bird. The idea in the book was that the dragon was a imagistic representation of the class of all predators, which also might be why dragons also breathe fire, because fire was undoubtedly a common destructive agent in our evolutionary past. But the dragon is the most primordial symbol of that which lurks beyond which is known. In fact, it's even more primordial than that, because it even is that which lurks beyond what is unknown in some sense. Remember Donald Rumsfeld, unknowns, unknown unknowns? Well, that's basically the dragon. There's some unknowns that pop up that you can master right away, and you could kind of think of those as known unknowns. But unknown unknowns are those things that pop up that you don't know how, you had no idea whatsoever that they even existed. Anyways, what's the character of an unknown unknown? Well, part of it's terrifying because it can do you in, right? But part of it's also positive, and because anything that's truly unknown brings it with it a tremendous amount of new possibility. That's why dragons hoard gold, or why they also hoard princesses or guard princesses. Hoard, I would say, is the right word. So I don't think the dragon in the West is a fully negative symbol, because the dragon has gold associated with it, or virgins, and the reason for that is that the hero who confronts the dragon gets the virgin, and that hasn't changed. That's a story as old as time. And so anyways, the dragon is a very complex and ambivalent symbol. It combines everything into one symbol, positive and negative, and then you can stress the positive or you can stress the negative. You could also say to some degree that whether a dragon is positive or negative depends to some degree on the manner in which you approach it, because the psychological reality is that dragons approached voluntarily while small are most likely to be positive. And that's a really good thing to know in your life. It's a good reason, it's a good rule of thumb to help you stop avoiding things that you shouldn't avoid, so that they don't grow and magnify beyond your capacity to deal with them.
So Peterson points out here that facing your dragons before they get too big is a great idea, and that the dragon is both a positive and negative symbol, and that the hero who slays the dragon gets the maiden, and we know that's true with hypergamy, and also symbolically, as the maiden represents the anima, which we'll get to more soon, by the way. But what about the hoard of gold? Well, it represents the new possibilities and the rewards of exploring and taking on the unknown, but what else?
And so, I think that especially this image of the treasure.
Yeah.
And it's important to understand also the treasure as a heap. The idea of the treasure as a heap means that it has been brought back down to its potentiality. You could say it that way. And so the avarice was actually I would say the first avarice was not the avarice of Smaug. The first avarice is the avarice of the dwarves, who wanted to gather all that is below, right? And gather all the gold that is hidden, And then this dragon comes and kind of keeps it in a fallow state, right? It's a kind of weird, it's going to be strange for people. People are going to find it strange I use this word, but it's like a strange Sabbath or a strange Jubilee, where the value of this treasure is made fallow by the fact that the dragon is lying down upon it, and nobody can use it, right? When I talk about this idea of the dragon as kind of this chaos in a negative sense, but maybe also a kind of immeasurable potential in a positive sense, potential strength, potential power, potential richness, riches. And so that you really do see that in this story. So on the one hand, the dragon is preventing people from using this gold. And so there's something seemingly evil about it. And obviously Smaug is not represented as a benevolent creature in no way.
Right.
But we also know that if Smaug is killed, then all hell is going to break loose.
Yes, it would require a reordering
Yeah.
of that whole region.
means that war's coming. If Smaug dies, war's coming, and everybody kind of is aware of that, because all of a sudden this land, this you could this is kind of a weird image, but hopefully people will understand what I'm talking about. And so you can imagine the dragon is not guarding a treasure, but is guarding a virgin. And so while the dragon is guarding the virgin, then there are no knights will fight for her, right? But as soon as the dragon leaves, or if you kill the dragon, then you have the problem of then all of a sudden people might start fighting for the hand of that virgin, right?
Right, which you see, I mean, that's a lot of stories. It's interesting, like there's no princesses that need to be rescued in Tolkien, although he references in The Hobbit, when Bilbo encounters Gandalf for the first time in the book, he talks about the rescue of princesses.
Okay,
but of course, there is no princess needing to be rescued in the traditional sense in Tolkien's work. What does the princess represent in the stories? It's always potentiality.
Yeah, she represents future family, future potentiality. Because she's not married yet.
The princess is kind of potentiality. The prince wants to rescue her in order to start a family with her and to create a new order.
Yeah.
Right? And the gold is this way in The Hobbit.
Definitely.
It's the thing that is the new order, potentially.
Yeah.
And
so it holds great potential, but especially in the case of the princess being freed from the dragon, you don't have this idea that there are many princes all trying to free the princess, because then if that was the story, then you would imagine the problem of once one prince is successful in freeing the princess, what stops all the princes from fighting between each other to know who's going to get the princess? Yeah. And that's the story in Smaug, is that's everybody's watching this treasure, and as soon as it's freed up, then here come the armies, and it's going to be, and this just has real life. This has real life stories.
It's very political.
And that's why Eastern Congo is a hellscape, is because everybody's fighting for that potentiality.
So we've heard a lot about potentiality, and that's true and great, but what other specifics can we draw from the motif of the hero facing the dragon? Let's delve into Carl Jung's world for a moment. From a Jungian perspective, dragons represent the mother archetype. Much like the snake, they are closely associated with chaos, time, change, the realm of the unknown, and the unconscious. They're an important symbol to understand in the process of individuation, and we'll discuss that more soon. Robert A. Johnson explains in Lying with the Heavenly Woman how the dragon represents the mother complex, which is the part of us that is pessimistic and repressive, the part of us that says, I can't. This dragon must be killed in order to mature. The maiden the dragon holds as a prisoner is the man's anima, which is another archetype, the inner feminine and the creative inner connector to the unconscious. The archetypal motif of the hero fighting the sea dragon of chaos and potential is called the Chaos Kampf motif. You can find it in the myths of Tiamat and Marduk, Thor against Jormungandr, YAHWEH versus the Leviathan, Zeus versus Typhon, Ra versus Apep, and on it goes. The story typically ends with the hero getting some kind of cosmic treasure, and the hero versus the dragon story is similar, of course, with the hero getting gold or a beautiful virgin or some other valuable treasure. The hero's task is to rescue the maiden, or anima, from the grasp of the beast, and ultimately to integrate in other words, her and establish his kingdom with her. This archetypal pattern can help guide us through major transitional passages in our individual development, when the self leads us to change, rebirth, or renewal. Like I mentioned earlier, the dragon is symbolically very similar to the snake, and they're often synonymous. One good example is the Ouroboros, the snake or dragon forever swallowing its own tail, which is an alchemical symbol of transformation and assimilation. The consuming of the opposite, which is analogous to Jung's joining of the opposites. Carl Jung saw the Ouroboros as a mandala of a sort, an archetypal template of the psyche symbolizing eternity and the law of endless return, and ultimately, the ongoing process of individuation. Facing your dragons can mean facing the terrifying realm of your own unconscious mind internally, or facing your fears in the outside world. Conquering the dragon is to differentiate yourself from the mother archetype and overcome the mother complex, ultimately bringing order out of chaos, fending off the destructive force of time with the order-bringing tools of attention, language, truth and reason, the logos. Your reward for this is the freeing of and integration with the anima, plus the psychological gold you dig up from your shadow in the process of journeying into the recesses of your mind to find the dragon and slay it. Ultimately, of course, the reward is psychological wholeness and maturity, individuation. Lastly, here's one more clip from Jordan Peterson explaining how you can confront your dragon and overcome it.
And so this is the world that you're in. You're somewhere, because you have to be somewhere. Now, you might not know where that is, which means that the somewhere that you are is chaotic, in which case you need to go over your past in great detail and figure out where you are. It's like you're lost, right? You're lost, and the problem with being lost is when you're lost, you don't know where to go, and the problem with not knowing where to go is there's a million places that you could go, and a million places is too many places for you to go without dying. So being lost is not good. So you need to know where you are. One of the things that we built online, my partners and I, is this program called Past Authoring that helps people lay out the narrative of their past, to identify, to break their life down into 6 stages, epochs we call them, and then to identify the emotionally significant moments in each epoch and to write them out. What happened negatively, what happened positively, what the consequences were, what you derived from it, perhaps what you could have done differently, perhaps what you learned from it, all of that, so that you can narrow in, zero in on determining precisely where it is that you are right now. And people are often loath to do that because they actually don't want to know, because they'd rather be spread out in a sort of half-blind manner in the fog, hoping that the place that they're at is better than it really is, and deluding themselves by remaining vague, than to figure out, I'm right here, right now, with these specific problems. But it's actually better to do that, because if you have a set of specific problems, and you've really narrowed them down and really specified them, then you can probably start fixing them, and you can start fixing them in micro ways, bit by bit. But there's no way you can do that without knowing where you are. It's impossible. And you can kind of tell if you don't know where you are. It's quite straightforward. If you are haunted by reveries of the past, for events that are older than approximately 18 months, if they continue to come up in your mind over and over, in your dreams over and over, you haven't extracted the world out from your past experiences. The potential is still trapped in the past. And to confront the potential means to confront the dragon of the past. And of course, that's terrifying, and it can seriously be terrifying. So for example, maybe you're vague and ill-formed and ill-defined because you were abused very badly when you were a child, 4 years old, something like that. And maybe you were abused by a family member, because that's generally who does the abusing. And so that just makes it worse. And then what that means is that you've had an implicit encounter with malevolent evil. You've had a direct encounter with malevolent evil, but you have an implicit hypothesis of malevolent evil that's plaguing you. It's still there. It's trapped in the memories, right? It's trapped in the representational structure. And as an adult, you're now faced with the necessity of articulating that fully before you have any chance whatsoever of freeing yourself from it. And so that's no joke. Lots of times people have to go into the past. That's what the psychoanalysts do, and say, look, here is something came along and just bloody well knocked me over. And it isn't even that I repressed it, which I think was, well, we won't talk about Freud's errors because Freud was a genius, so we'll just leave him alone. But sometimes it's not repression, it's just that terrible things happen to people at such a young age that there isn't a bloody chance in hell that they can figure out why they happened or what to do with them or what they mean. And then you can carry that with you, and you carry it with you. It's like your body encounters the world in stages, and it happens very rapidly. Well, it can extend over years, but the initial stages happen very rapidly. So for example, if you're walking down the road and you hear a loud noise behind you, go like this. That's a predator defense response, by the way. You crouch down, and that's to stop something from jumping on your back and getting at your neck too easily. That's like a few hundred milliseconds. It's really fast, or even faster than that. And it better be, because something like a snake, we'll say, can nail you just right now, so you better be fast. But it's low resolution. It's like danger snake, something like that, or danger predatory cat. It's that fast. And then you can unravel that and categorize it, but that takes time. You do that with emotion, and then you do it with cognition, and you can do that with long-term thinking, because maybe you've encountered someone specifically malevolent and predatory at work. That happens to people a lot, who's operating as a destructive bully, and who seems to have no positive function whatsoever, and is only living that out. And then you don't know what to do about it. So you're in prey mode. I don't mean this kind of mode, although that would help too. But I mean, you're acting like a prey animal, and then you have this terribly complex thing to decompose, which is, what the hell's up with this person? Why are they making my life miserable? What is it about me that allows them to make my life miserable? That's a nasty little road to walk down, and you're stuck with having to decompose it. Maybe you can't. Maybe formulating an explicit philosophy of good and evil to deal with something malevolent in your environment actually just happens to be beyond you. And that could easily be. It's certainly the case for people who are young, and it's the case for plenty of adults as well.